Golden brother bullied me all my life and parents did nothing to make him feel more confident, but I ended up surpassing him anyways and doing much better, so as a pathetic attempt to boost his ego one more time at his wedding, they try to credit all my success to him, claiming that I wouldn't be here if he didn't show me tough love for years, so I get in front of everyone and thank him for his unwavering support too. I just came back from a family gathering and things got really awkward, uncomfortable and tense. I said a lot of things, some of which I had never said before, and now I feel like I need some reassurance as to whether I did the right thing or not. So, about myself, I'm 25, I'm a model and have done my fair share of shows and gigs in the past few years. And this is quite an unexpected career for me because for years I had been bullied for being too fat. This is my personal Monica from Fran's story, because I was seriously overweight and struggled with obesity for a very long time before I started losing weight in my 20s. It was not easy. It took a couple of years, but I was able to bring myself to a normal healthy weight. And then at 22, I got offered my first modeling gig by a photographer friend of mine who I went to school with. Since then, there's been no looking back for me, and I realized that this is what I want to do with my life. I'm healthy and I'm proud of myself for having achieved this, but credit goes to me, my friends who were supportive of me and people who did not make fun of me. I did not lose weight because of the bullies. I lost weight because of the supporters, and anybody who believes otherwise is seriously deluded. My biggest bully was somebody from my own family, my brother, Jake, 30 male. He's always been a huge loser who just happened to be fit, but he was still brainless. Even when we were children, he always looked for excuses to put me down, and he got the perfect one when I was in middle school and I hit puberty, and that's when I started putting on some weight. He made horrible comments about me and my body, about my face, about how fat I was, and whenever he would see me with food, he would literally make a piggy nose at me. I complained about him to my parents several times, but they told me that he was just joking and that I should be a little less sensitive about things like this. Eventually, I got tired of complaining and I learned to live with it. The bullying was relentless because it wasn't just happening at home, it was also happening at school, and kids in high school can be the meanest creatures alive when they want to be. So I was a common target for everyone and it made me really self-conscious. I started hating myself. I started isolating myself from everyone and literally tried to go invisible. I didn't realize it back then, but I think I was depressed for most of my time in high school. And the worst part was that my relationship with food became really bad because I ate at random. Sometimes I would starve myself so I would be able to lose some weight. And then when I inevitably started feeling hungry, I would end up going on junk food binge and later feel like crap about myself. I was a total mess, and it didn't get better until I started college and people started paying less attention to my appearance and more to who I was as a person. That's when I decided that I wasn't going to focus on getting skinny. I was just going to try and be healthy, and that change was all that I needed. With the support of my friend, I was able to get my life on track. I became a lot more outgoing and came out of that dark place. I'm sorry that I rambled on and on about it, but it's just been very difficult for me, and I felt like I had to talk about it. Anyway, during this time, Jake and my parents were not at all supportive towards me. Jake still continued to bully me, and my parents never ever said or did anything to boost my confidence. They would either turn a deaf ear or they would pretend like it was all fine and I was being oversensitive. So naturally, I have had a complicated relationship with my parents, or at least that's what I called it. Until recently, when I realized it was not complicated, it was just plain toxic. In my head, I always try to defend them. But today, I realized that I shouldn't have bothered because they were just bad for me. I should have cut them off a long time back. But, unfortunately, I had continued to stay in touch with them just for the sake of keeping up appearances. I continued to attend family parties that they would host. I went home for the holidays and I also attended Jake's wedding last year. I did it all for them because they would request me to. And so, because they had requested me to show up, I attended his pregnancy announcement party today as well. Everything was going well, but one of my relatives suddenly commented on how nice it was to see me do so well in my career because I had recently been part of a pretty big show, and how they had never expected to see this side of me, given how I used to look. I get comments like this very often from relatives because they don't know any better. They are not as woke. So I decided to just smile and not say anything. But my parents decided to stick up for my brother all of a sudden, probably because he was still the same brainless loser that he used to be in school. And the business that our parents had helped him start was failing, and he needed them to bail him out. He was going through a rough patch, and because they did not want him to feel insecure about the compliments that I had received about my career, they decided to make a very stupid remark that set me off. They said that I should probably be thankful to my brother because I owe my career to him due to all the tough love that he had shown me, and which eventually motivated me to shed all that weight. That really triggered me, because if anything, he was the one who had mentally tortured me for years, and that was a huge part of the reason why I was so depressed and was actually unmotivated to do anything about myself. As I said, It was not the bullies who helped me lose weight. It was my well-wishers, and he was anything but a well-wisher for me, so I really lost it, and I decided to finally talk about everything that he had put me through. I laughed at my parents' remark, asked them if that's what they really thought, and then I went on to speak about everything that I had mentioned. I spoke about it in great detail and everyone looked horrified because he really was terrible to me. After I was done, I just left without another word because I didn't know what else to say. And now, my parents are blowing up my phone, accusing me of overreacting and saying that I did not need to say all that, especially in front of my sister-in-law who's pregnant and is going to gain a lot of weight. Because now, my sister-in-law is giving Jake a hard time and is refusing to speak to him unless he apologizes to me first. They've called me an attention seeker, a sympathy seeker, and said that I have embarrassed the whole family for no reason, and they think that I've done this all out of spite. I honestly don't know what to think anymore. AITA, for speaking up at a party and talking about how my brother had bullied me for being fat. Okay, so a couple of things here. I have a fairly good relationship with my sister-in-law. In fact, the first time that I met her, I had no idea what she was even doing with a loser like Jake. She's really well-spoken, kind, and I honestly feel like I should have warned her, but then that would have probably got me cut off from the family forever. Now, the reason why my relatives were shocked at my speech was because they actually had no idea how badly I was being bullied at home. They had no idea that my parents never interfered because I was forbidden from talking about it outside, and Jake had the common sense not to act out in the presence of guests or other relatives. You guys might have figured out that my parents are pretty conscious about their image, so naturally they couldn't afford to have their son bullying me openly because that would have seemed weird. And lastly, I know a lot of people have questions about why I continued to see my parents despite the mistreatment. Like I said, it was just because I wanted to have a relationship with them, because I thought that a complicated relationship was still better than none at all. Call me a doormat, but honestly, all I wanted was that validation, ever since I was a child. And I guess I'm finally starting to grow out of it now, because like most other people who've been through similar situations and have grown up in toxic homes, took me a long time to realize that this is not normal and I shouldn't just accept it. And lastly, I know that a lot of people gave me flack for constantly referring to my brother as brainless and a loser and said that I was no less than a bully myself. But let me just clarify. Unlike him, I never went out of my way to hurt him over these things. Academically, he was never as good as me and was constantly flunking out of classes. He was definitely not the brightest tool in the shed, and I guess he was aware of it. He was not very hard-working either, and I don't think anything has changed there because he had our parents fund his business after he randomly decided to quit his job a couple of years ago, and even that isn't working anymore. I don't know what went wrong, but something definitely did. But I never threw his failures into his face as a teen until he started bullying me first. And then it would inevitably lead to a fight, either a verbal argument that would end with me crying or him laughing at me when it was too bad, with him beating me up because even though I was a lot bigger than him, I was still pretty weak and he was way stronger. So I would definitely say that him bullying me all the time was way different from me calling him a loser. Anyway, I hope that answers all the questions. Okay, so I've been having some mixed feelings about whatever my parents have accused me of, but after going through the comments here, I realized that I don't have anything to feel guilty or sorry about. I've been living with this for so long that I almost forgot that I was perfectly well within my rights to speak about everything that I had been through. Or rather, everything that I had been put through just because Jake was an insecure bully, and my parents were spineless people who favored their loser son over their daughter. So now, since the truth is finally out, they are just sorry that they're being exposed and people finally know their reality. That's their own fault. If they did not want to come off as the villains in my story, then they should have probably just treated me nicer because they should have known that at some point, I definitely would speak up about everything that they have put me through. And honestly, I'm glad that I chose to do it. I don't have any regrets anymore. I was having second thoughts 2 days ago, but now that I have had time to reflect on everything, I just feel like this has been a long time coming. After going through the comments, I spoke to my friends about what I had done, and even they validated everything. They told me that I was perfectly in the right and that they deserved exactly this, if not worse. So with that in mind, I blocked all of them, with the exception of my sister-in-law. Because like I said, she and I have a normal relationship and she herself hadn't done anything wrong. She just happened to be married to the person I hated the most, and I'm pretty sure that in front of her, he's a completely different guy, which is why she even ended up with him. Judging by the expression on her face when I had been telling my side of the story of the party, she was probably unaware that her husband could be capable of stuff like this, so I didn't block her. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I really hope that she sees him for what he truly is. I wouldn't say that she should leave him because that's unlikely since they are literally expecting a child together, and I wouldn't want my future niece and nephew to have a life like that. But I would definitely say that she should realize what kind of person he is and do something to put him on the right track. And the condition that she had set forth, which I heard about from my parents, that he had to apologize to me, and only then would she speak to him. I think that's pretty fair. And if he was a decent person, he would have apologized to me by now. But by now, even I know not to expect anything remotely humane from him. I'm pretty sure that even now he must be fighting with his wife over this. Anyway, it doesn't matter to me if he apologizes to me or not, because for me, none of them exist anymore. I have realized that I don't need these kinds of people in my life. They have done nothing but make it harder right from when I was a child. In fact, it's crazy that my parents should tell me that I have embarrassed the family, when in fact I'm embarrassed to even be related to them and have to call them my family. All my life, they have always been biased towards my brother in every which way, and I'm finally beginning to see that now. So congratulations to them. They can stay with the loser and celebrate their favorite. I'm out. I'm no longer going to make any excuses for them and their problematic behavior just because they're my parents. So I'm pretty glad that I chose not to block my sister-in-law because it's been a couple of days since my last update, almost a week since the incident. And today, she decided to text me. She texted me in the morning and asked me if I would be free to meet her for lunch. I was a bit skeptical about it, but then I agreed and she told me that she would come to this particular restaurant near my office. I'm a stylist assistant when I'm off duty as a model. I hope that clears stuff up for anyone confused about the office thing. And we could catch up there. I had no idea what she was going to say, so I was kind of nervous the entire morning before lunch. And then I finally did meet her, and she seemed very subdued. She's usually really outgoing and talkative, but this time, she did not seem like her usual self. And after having placed our orders, she told me that she was really sorry about everything that I had gone through. I told her that she didn't need to apologize. It was not like she knew any of this. And even if she did, she still wouldn't have had to apologize because it's not like she had put me through any of this personally. She didn't have anything to do with whatever had happened in the past and I didn't hold any grudges against her. Then all of a sudden she just broke down and said that she was really upset because she'd been fighting with him for the past week ever since the incident, since he was just being really stubborn and had refused to apologize to me. He claimed that apparently whenever he would call me fat, I would also hit back and call him dumb and stuff and try to make him feel bad about his insecurities. So he believed that we were even, and of course, like any normal human being, my sister-in-law did not agree with that, because ultimately, he agreed that he would start it. I would just reciprocate, in spite that. He was still not willing to apologize to me because he said that he didn't like me and had nothing to do with me, so he didn't feel the need to apologize to me at all. He said that the way I had behaved at the party negated everything that happened before, in his opinion, because, apparently, I had my revenge, and now we can definitely call it even. This is obviously just him being egoistic. There's no way he actually believes any of this rubbish, and he just doesn't want to apologize to me because he thinks that it'll make him look smaller. And my sister-in-law told me that she's getting really exhausted dealing with him because she's trying to get him to do the right thing, and they've been going back and forth on this for the past couple of days, and she's at her wit's end right now. I had to comfort her because I could tell that she was going through a really hard time, and if I was in her place, I would probably be feeling the same way. I tried to tell her that she really didn't have to get into a fight with him over me because I was done with him. I didn't expect anything from him or my parents and neither would I hold it against her if she continued to have a normal relationship with him. Because after all, she has seen a different side of him, and despite my personal experience with him, I can't deny the fact that he might behave differently with other people. But she told me that it was just not possible for her to see him the same way again, especially now with the pregnancy coming up, because she knew that she was going to gain a ton of weight. And if this is the kind of person that he would turn out to be when she put on weight as well, then she would have to rethink her entire relationship with him. She told me that the women in her family tend to gain weight very quickly, and she has also had her fair share of troubles with her weight, although they hadn't been as bad as mine. So this just feels equally insulting for her, and that's why she's so desperate to get him on the right track. I didn't know what to tell her, so I just heard her out quietly and let her vent her feelings. After a while, I realized I had to start preparing to get back to work. So I told her that I would keep in touch with her, and I wanted her to know that even if he did not apologize to me, I was completely fine with it, and I could understand why she wanted him to do that, but even if he didn't, she could work the situation out in which way she wanted to. And she didn't have to do anything on my account because all I wanted was for her and the baby to be happy and healthy. I didn't want her to stress herself out over this. She seemed genuinely relieved by the end of our conversation and told me that she was happy to have spoken to me and that she was glad that I was being so nice to her in spite of how unkind my brother had been to me all along. We had already had a good relationship and this just improved it because I feel like we know each other at a better and deeper level now. I feel like we really understand each other and it's sad that we bonded over something like being body shamed, but at least we are better friends now and I really hope that things between her and my brother get better, not for his sake, but for hers. She is a really sweet person and I can tell that she genuinely loves him. So for that reason, I just truly hope that it all works out. So, hey, it's been 2 weeks since my last update. Since then, I've been pretty busy with a new show coming up and with rehearsals and stuff. I had pretty much managed to put the whole thing with my brother and my parents out of my mind because I was focusing on my work and other aspects of my life. My sister-in-law and I had kept in touch, and she told me that she had decided to go and stay with her parents for a couple of days because she really needed a break from everything. And Jake had apparently been very upset, but he had still refused to apologize to me. But on the 4th day, which is today, I guess he changed his mind. Finally in the morning, I received a phone call from an unknown number. And at first, I did not respond because I usually don't pick up calls from numbers I don't know, especially right in the morning. But then he texted me saying that it was him, and he really needed me to pick up because he wanted to apologize to me. So when he called a couple of seconds later, I picked up, and I was actually kind of taken aback because I knew that if he was asking me to pick up the call so he could apologize, it meant that he was willing to apologize in a genuine way. Because if that hadn't been the case, he could have just texted me and let it be at that. Anyway, when he spoke, I could tell he was feeling really awkward. But he told me that for the past couple of days, he had been very stubborn and had continued to fight with his wife because he did not want to apologize to me. He assumed that I knew about it because my sister-in-law had told him that she had stayed in touch with me. And even though I didn't care whether he apologized to me or not, she cared. And she had asked him not to bother contacting her until he had done what he had been asked to do. And once that was done, once he had apologized, I myself would call her and let her know. But until then, she would be staying with her parents and she would not be talking to him. And she had stayed true to it as well. She hadn't spoken a word to him since she left. She had ignored all his phone calls and messages, and he was left completely alone to think about what he wanted to do. And since then, he had been thinking about everything that was happening and he decided that he had better apologize to me. Because ultimately, even though neither of us cared much for the other, it was clear that this meant a great deal to his wife. I couldn't help but ask him if he was only apologizing to me because that's what his wife wanted or if he actually wanted to apologize. He took a couple of seconds to think about it and then said very honestly that it was a bit of both. He told me that he wouldn't have thought about apologizing to me if his wife had not been so bent on it. And then because he had been refusing for so long, he had the opportunity to think about what he had been doing, and ultimately, he had decided that it would be the right thing to apologize. Because he was going to start a new chapter in his life as a father and he wanted to start off on a right foot. He told me that he had in fact regretted how he had behaved with me when we were teens and how badly he had bullied me. But he never thought about apologizing or setting things right with me, because there was just no driving force to do so. And he did not want to look small, which is something he thought would happen if he apologized. And he was also convinced that I was just as bad a bully as him, because I used to comment on his intellect as well. But obviously, that was not the case, because he would always poke me first. Anyway, all things said and done, he had been wrong and he wanted to take this moment to apologize to me for everything that he had said in the past and the way he had treated me. I didn't tell him that I forgave him or whatever. I just said I would pass on the message to his wife, and then we hung up. For me, it really didn't matter if the apology was genuine or not. It seemed genuine enough. I just wanted what was best for my sister-in-law because personally, I've already said I don't really care about his apology, so this was more for her than for me. After the phone call, I called her up, told her everything, and she seemed slightly happier. She thanked me and that was that. And honestly, I'm actually pretty happy that Jake decided to stop being so stubborn and apologize because he was right about one thing. He should start off his journey as a father on the right foot. And I'm glad that he decided to sort things out with his wife instead of letting this go further. I hope they're able to manage to sort it out completely and are properly back with each other soon enough. Hey, so it has been 6 months since my update and while Jake has apologized, my parents have not bothered to speak to me and I'm glad that they haven't because I don't want to talk to them either. But we are going to have to see each other, unfortunately. Because my sister-in-law is hosting a baby shower and she has invited me. I was planning on skipping it and apologizing to her later, but she told me that I had to be there. And so I'm guessing that we're all going to have a happy little reunion. In all honesty, I haven't even seen my parents ever since the night of the party, so I don't know how it's going to be now. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that nothing awkward happens this time around. Hi. So I attended the baby shower yesterday, and thankfully, it was not as awkward as I had figured it was going to be. I stuck to my sister-in-law and her friends for most of the time and had to occasionally interact with my brother, which was kind of uncomfortable, but whatever. As for my parents, we steered clear of each other completely and did not even greet each other and that suits me just fine because like I said, I don't want to be talking to them either. It's a big deal enough that I have decided to be civil towards my brother, but that's only for the sake of my sister-in-law because she's been so nice to me. Over the past few months, we've become really close, And I would say that she's one of my closest friends now, so that's why I've made my peace with my brother as well. And he's also been tolerable, so I guess people can change.